Welcome, everyone. I love saying that because it's always a pleasure to be here with you. Today, we're going to be diving into something very interesting. We're going to be looking at Remote's State of Payroll report for 2024. Now, this report offers incredible insights into the state of payroll today, based on feedback from over 3,800 HR decision makers that we reached out to, and employees as well across the globe. We'll be discussing the common pitfalls, challenges, and emerging trends the payroll teams face, and what this all means for businesses, and of course, for employees like me and you. The data is fascinating, I must say. For instance, we've learned that payroll isn't just about getting people paid. And I know that sounds like something like cliche, is that really right? But the report shows how errors in payroll are eroding employee trust, particularly among younger workers. Many employees, especially Gen Z, are disengaged from their paychecks and find that payroll and HR systems are really confusing and frustrating. So today, we'll explore how businesses can address these challenges and what the future holds for payroll. Now, to help us break it all down is someone who you've probably heard from, you've probably seen, and if this is your first time of engaging with any of our content, you'll probably be seeing him for the very first time. But I have the pleasure to break down this report with me here in our studio, none other than the VP of Payroll at Remote, the one, the only, Jonathan Goldsmith. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you, Calvin. You always basically make me blush every time. But I appreciate the nice words, and I'm excited to be here to have a informal discussion around the new report that's come out. Talk about what we're seeing in payroll right now, where we've come from, where we're going. It's an exciting time for payroll. You know, I think that CFOs and CHROs are realizing this is no longer a back office function, and it's a retention tool. And there's other things going on here that we need to be aware of to help. Pay is an emotional thing. So I'm excited to talk about this report, ways that organizations can make sure they use this as retention, learn about how to run better payroll, and give a better experience to their employees.
Yep. And for context, if you're watching this and you're wondering what the report is, we're definitely going to link that in so you can read it and then you can follow along in this discussion. Right, Jonathan, you're definitely the expert, and I feel like I know that you're the best person to discuss this with, so we're really excited to have you on here. Let's kick things off with something that jumped up to me when I read the report or when I looked through it, right? The report says that over 53% of employees have experienced payroll errors in the last 2 years. And what's even more shocking is for those new in the employment industry, like Gen Z workers, that number shoots up, Jonathan, to over 70%. So that's crazy. Like that's a huge number. Why do you think younger workers are feeling the brunt of payroll errors? And how can companies actually start rebuilding their trust? I mean, we all know that the Gen Z generation are very quick, like they want everything fast. So when we have these errors, how do they survive? How do they solve these?
Well, I'm not surprised. Gen Z, digitally, they're very, they're smart. They use apps regularly. They've grown up with it, right? Yeah. Their expectation for consumer grade offerings is high, and they process information quick. So they're going to find those errors quickly if they're there. And we know that one error leads to 25% of your workforce is already looking somewhere else from that. 2 errors, 50%. So you better get it right. We don't have the same level of what we used to, where employees will stick with companies for long term. So if you spend all that time, effort, and money on finding talent, you want to retain them.
True.
So it's an important component. That's an investment. You're spending a lot of money on that. So we have to make sure we give them the best tools. So Gen Z is finding those errors. I think it's multifaceted. It's one, they just have an eye for it. Okay, they've learned in a digital world. So I mean, this thought of consumer grade offering. I mean, they're going to look at your app or they're going to look at your website and go, who designed this? How is this working? Right? I mean, they find it quickly, right? Because they're used to it. They've seen 1,000 apps, right? Tens of thousands of websites. So, how do you handle that generation of workers? Well, you better find a partner that knows what they're doing, right? Yeah. And that is an expert in that area. So that's important. Is consumer design focused is going to be important. You want to get to your pay slip quickly. You want it to be clear. You want to be empowering, enables you, it educates you. Something that hasn't been done in payroll is we just hand a pay slip, pay stub, and they see what money they're getting. Mm-hmm. And yeah, some tax lines, maybe pensions, stuff like that. But things fluctuate. Yeah. And so naturally, maybe any generation, there's a trust factor that, it's kind of changed for the workforce. Yeah. And the younger workers, and there's a lot of reasons you could say culture and things like that, but they just don't have that inherent first trust. They have to build, you have to earn it. Yeah. So when it comes to payroll, if they see a change in their pay slip, immediately they're going to think, why? What changed here? What are you not telling me? Are you correct? I don't know. I'm not an expert in payroll, so they won't know. So you need to work with a partner that is willing to invest in the enablement and education, present it in a medium that the employees like. So is it in the app? This is why maybe there's a new tax. Who knows? You should show it to them there. So this is how we take care of that generation. We provide them with data, with information. That's what they're used to. That's what they want on the platform. So you have to start, adapting and changing to your new generation of workers. And I think that's the first key in that part.
And I think Remote is doing a great job at that. And I'm not just saying this because I'm here at Remote, but we have this app where, for example, we get all our pay slips, right, even before payday. And you can easily see what's on your pay slip, and you can click when something isn't clear to understand what it is. And that's what they are looking for, right? So I think we're getting that right. And for companies that are really looking forward to or looking to grow with this generation of people, they need to be looking at things like that, right?
100%. I mean, this is not promoting Remote. I love the app. I have worked on a lot of apps. I've used a lot of apps for different companies. I will put our app up against anybody's here from an HR perspective. It's really clean. It's really good. It's straightforward. I can get to what I need really quick. And that's, I did also grow up in the age of the digital world. I sort of bridged between both. So I do have a keen eye on it, and I think with my product background too. So it's a really good product, and it's modern and it's easy. And actually look forward to the new releases of it to see what new little toys they've added to it.
Always. Right. So Jonathan, still on the report, right? The good thing about it is this wasn't just a one region focused report, right? This was a report where we had respondents from different countries across the globe, different employees, different HR companies. And there were some regional differences that basically, cropped up. And one of them is, very clear, right? It says that in the US, nearly 58% of employees reported payroll issues, right? While the UK and Germany have lower rates, basically 44% and 47% respectively. Why do you think the US has more problems when it comes to payroll? And what can companies learn from these international or regional differences? Like, is there a trend? Is there something we can learn from those?
Yeah, you got to unpack that a little bit. There's some interesting things there. I would say first, for UK payroll, someone that lives in the UK, it's a fairly straightforward payroll. Some UK payroll people might disagree with me, but if I compare it to US and Germany, it is simpler. Only about 22% of employees in the UK are covered under a CBA. So it's a bit simpler to run. When it comes to the US and Germany, they're more complicated, multiple layers to it, right? So Germany, you have work councils, you have company contracts, you have federal districts, you have the national government. The US, you can have unions, you can have states, you can have local city, different taxes there, and you can have the federal. So there's multiple layers there. Why is there a difference between the two? I also think that you look at the providers in those areas. Payroll in Germany, you have domestic providers that have been in that market for a long time. That I think that legislation changes. It doesn't change significantly on the federal or government issue as much as I think you have a new government come in basically every 4 years in the US. Things can change there a lot. And obviously you have the state layer, which, there's not 50 federal districts in Germany. There's 50 states in the US. So you're going to get a lot of change in depth there. So, there is a lot of change year over year in the US. And I think that you also have a population, like we talked about before, that's maybe slightly more astute in this area or focused. I think that there's also a change in employee culture also that has to be considered there. I think, or general in culture in the US versus Germany, and how closely employees will look at their pay slips. The sort of culture of staying with one company, there's a slightly higher maybe trust factor in Germany with your employer pay slips. Employees tend to stay with their companies a bit longer than the US. So I think there's some detail there to be aware of. But what it is calling out, I think both the numbers are concerning. One is higher than the other. But what we said before about how many people are going to look for a new job once these errors happen, right? And so that is a scary high percentage. That again, we come back to who you're partnering with, how they're educating, and how do they learn from those mistakes and improve them. So I think there's some regional differences there from a culture standpoint, from a intricacy standpoint that need to be taken account. But I think both numbers are a bit alarming.
Yeah. And tying to that point, Jonathan, about culture, the cultural differences, and what people will do, still in our respondents, in the things they said when we raised this question about, what they would do if they discovered payroll errors in their pay slips, irrespective of the country, irrespective of the location, right? When this question went out, 70%, especially those within the ages of 16 to 24, Gen Zs basically said their perception and their opinion of their employer changed whenever there was a payroll error, right? 70% of them. So in other words, that's a huge number of people that are saying, whenever there's an error, my perception of my employer changes, right? So how, if companies are going to be hiring people in this, and they should, of course, be hiring people in this age range, how do they prepare against things like this? How can they improve their payroll processes, to rebuild that trust, especially, with younger employers?
I think first, you're talking about 16 to 24. So you're not going to have as much history with that employee. I mean, a late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, there's more of a likely chance they've been with you for longer. So you've built some trust there.
Yeah.
You've built a relationship. It's like anything in your life when you're building a relationship. Time conquers all. It's about build. It takes time to build a relationship, experience, things like that. So if you're 16 to 24, if you have a payroll error, you probably haven't been at the company very long. It's likely. So you as an organization don't have that trust builds, and you don't have any space to break that trust and make up for it, right? So that's one part. So how do you build trust quickly? Okay. I always think that the way you build trust with someone is there's words and there's actions, right? So what's an action with payroll? It's showing them information or education about the payslip. We've brought that up before. I think there's a level of enablement, whether that be through different communication mediums, their videos. Maybe your partner doesn't have the explanations in the app or something like that, why can't you as a payroll admin on a company side or HR admin do a short video explaining someone's payslip?
Yep.
Walk them through it, a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
The impact of that is high, and then they're more educated. I find that a lot of feedback we get from employees is actually they just don't understand the payslip. Well, once you make them feel comfortable in that, nobody likes being out of their comfort zone, especially with something about pay, right? So you can really, this is about relationship building. A lot of people talk about product. I like to talk about service or support. So in anything in your life, you're going to feel more comfortable the more educated you are, the more insight you have. So for these 16 to 24-year-olds, it might be their first job. So why aren't we educating them? Why do we expect that they're going to know this? All right. I mean, there's a lot of school systems, they don't even teach civics anymore. They don't teach all these things. And we expect people to know this. They don't know how to budget. They don't know why would they know about their payslip? So you, if you are the source of truth, the educator, the service within your company, put a 5-minute video together. Do, it should be part of your onboarding. We do about HR stuff, health and safety, stuff like that.
Yep.
Is there anything more important than pay? Right? I don't think I've heard of anybody doing 10 minutes on, let me explain to you the pay slip and what you're going to see. Seems pretty simple to me.
Yeah. Totally agree. I think there's a lot of oversight when we have new people. Like, we just go in the same process irrespective of the differences in age, and you find that lots of these people are very quick to move, and that's why probably it's a different discussion why younger people excuse me, tend to just move or change up very quickly. But yeah, I believe that if there's a mistake, if there's a problem, companies should be able to own it. They should be able to fix it fast, and most importantly, keep the employee informed, right? Communicate, whether that's proactively or reactively. They need to make sure they communicate. Right. Interesting discussion so far, Jonathan. I always enjoy doing these with you because I also get to learn. One of the things, or another thing that the survey touched on, and I know this is a common theme nowadays, is, well-being, general morale. And of course, everyone feels bad when they don't get paid or when pay is delayed and things like that. But what we found is that when mistakes happen, normally it's not just about the paycheck, right? We need to focus on how that impacts people. Now, over half of the employees that we spoke to said, as those that have experienced payroll errors, they said they always feel stress or anxiety, right, when these errors happen. I mean, I think that's normal human reaction to such things. But from your point of view, how does payroll accuracy, right, tie into overall employee well-being? Like, what's the importance of one to the other? And what can companies do, right, to provide this, whatever your answer might be?
Yeah, I mean, this is one, I'm pretty passionate about for employees. I mean, your pay is an emotional thing. People use this to put food on the table, to educate to send their children to school, to buy their home, or to pay for their home, or for fun, to have fun. So if you get this pay wrong, now you are affecting someone's life pretty significantly. So I can understand why well-being is directly affected by a payroll error. Okay. And that's why, retention is usually affected by it. We just said that, right? Why would someone leave? You have hurt their lives, for lack of a better way of saying it, maybe there's medical expenses, who knows what it is, but this stuff is like really deep stuff, and it's very emotional. So, payroll, accurate payroll, timely payroll, is directly affects well-being. Okay. It's a huge stressor. One of the things that helps what we do with remote is I see my pay slip before it's paid directly to my account. I like getting the email. I like getting the notification. I go look at it. I go, yeah, things look good to go. And obviously with that education, it's helpful. And if I need to, I can reach out to someone and get it fixed beforehand. So it's important that we just don't think dropping into someone's account is the only job that we have to do. All right. They rely on it to pay their bills, right? Most people, you get to pay and then your credit card bill's due or your utilities are due or your mortgage is due. So I think we can all understand how this would affect someone's well-being. You take work home too, and that affects your family life. It's the same with that pay. Affects family life. We have December coming up, the holidays. Even I would say of all 12 months of the year, that one is the most emotional one, and we want to make sure that they're empowered to do whatever they want to do, and we have to have empathy for this. When you're partnering with a payroll company, or you're doing your services for your employees, or you're partnering with someone with what kind of service they offer, you have to go from a thought of empathy and how you will take care of your employees. And we've learned already with this discussion about retention with it. And it's also loyalty. They're going to be more loyal to you if you care about them. So that's an important thing to be thinking about. It's not just paying people.
I think, Jonathan, that takes me back to one of the statements you made when we started about why it's not just about a product, it's more about service. Showing, that you care almost transcends into better, like it gives a better product experience because you're thinking about how your product affects people. And now when we look at that generally in terms of payroll as a whole, as a system, right? And for you being part of a global company like Remote, what would you say are the biggest payroll challenges, that companies are facing today, especially those with global customers? Because it's one thing for us to understand there are all these payroll errors, but there's a place for education here for everyone listening about what are these challenges. We don't even know what you face as a company. Why does my paycheck come slow, or why are there these errors, right? What are those challenges?
Well, I think just to bring it back really quick, service versus product. I've been building products for a long time now. My heart is in product as a product manager, product strategist, and I believe in building great product. But at the end of the day, service is where it's at. It's kind of like when you think about your local community. I have places I go that are local stores because it's amazing the relationship you build in the service. Do they clean my clothes the same as maybe a bigger service, or maybe do they give me the same groceries as another service? Maybe it's a little more expensive, but that relationship and the service and the care I'm going to get, there's a real difference there. And it's retention, back to it. That local service, that local baker, that local butcher, the dry cleaners, they keep me as a consumer or customer because of the service they give. Yes, the product is still comparable. Maybe it's a tiny bit slower or something like that, but the quality is probably higher. And maybe the price is slightly higher, but the service is what it's all about to me. So, you asked me about the challenges here, right? And whatever the challenges are, it's really the partner that you're working with is going to be the one that's going to help you with those challenges. The expectation that everybody has answers to everything on a customer side, that's just that's not true. It's not going to happen, right? We have expertise locally, which is a focus of mine. I always say to you, I only hire local because payroll is really local, right? Even if you have a single platform and it's multi-country and it's global, the detail, is the important part locally, and you need to know all those local pieces, right? We talked about Germany, we talked about the US and the local intricacy of it. So you need the experts for that. The product is only going to be as good as the experts you have in your wallet, right? So whatever the problems are, and I can go in certainly specific payroll challenges that people have, but those challenges are only solvable with having the right expertise. And so you can compare products all day, But if you've been in the payroll market, you know that most payroll companies, the service is not very good.
Yeah.
And that's where my focus is as a leader. I want a product that can support you and provide you with stuff, but then it's the service part. So what education can I put in the product? And then what level of service can I give, high touch service to the customer? This has changed. Well, I don't think it was ever quite good in the industry, but I think generally for consumers, service has gotten worse. Okay, we've lost our way with service for consumers. So, some of the big problems, obviously we talked about accuracy, timeliness, education with it. Those are the big ones where people leave payroll companies if you don't get it. Accuracy, like it's all local, like I said, understanding local detail, local laws, statutory requirements, taxes, legal components, all of that comes from those experts. We have a significant tax team here. We have our local councils and things like that. We have our local payroll ops, our audit and compliance risk areas. So, I've set those up for local expertise. So that's how you get accuracy, right? And then you also, at scale, you build it into a product, but that all comes from the experts. Okay. And then you bake that into a product. And then from, timeliness, it's about giving you the opportunity as the customer, if you're putting in your data or we're getting it from another source, your HR systems, things like that, it means that those integrations are API driven, they're timely, they're updating quickly, or we provide tools for you that makes it easy, straightforward for you to get data in and changes basically on demand. So it affects the payroll run. And companies that I think, offer off cycles included, that's an important component you should think of. Like, you have to make changes, you have to adapt, you have to have flexibility. Companies that are charging for off cycles is odd to me, because, you should be able to have that flexibility.
Yep.
And a lack of flexibility is saying to me that the payroll companies, want you to just be generic, right? They want to treat everybody the same. Month to month, you may need some flexibility depending on what's going on with your organization. And why it should be nickeling and diming you, charging you more for an off cycle, don't make sense to me. If your infrastructure is built right, that's just profit margin, right? Yeah. So, I'm more about the service. So that's important to me. And it's also like when we talk about implementation and I talk about service and partnership, we don't charge for implementation, right? Because we want to build a relationship.
Yep.
So this is about relationship building for me. And implementation is always, I don't get it. You're buying a product and now I'm going to charge you for implementing that product. Well, you bought the product. If the product was, you should be my trusted advisor. You should help me there. Yep. This is another thing I think of, and so I talked about accuracy. I talked about, sort of timeliness, and then there's obviously the education component, which I've touched on, which is, that's why I don't charge for implementation. We're educating you. We're onboarding you. We want to be that advisor. We don't want to count hours.
Yep.
Right? Like, oh, you got 50 hours. You've hit that. Buy 50 more and then we'll educate you. No. That's not how it works with me. So, it's a different approach. And so that's the education enablement part. So, it's just a different philosophy, and you'll find most payroll companies out there, you're just a number.
Yeah.
That's just not how I want to run a business.
And that's certainly not how remote does it, because we definitely are big on service. We definitely are big on the relationships, like you mentioned. So if we're to look ahead, Jonathan, in terms of payroll generally, right? What do you see? And I think I like to ask this question a lot, but for the benefit of everyone listening, what do you see as the biggest trends in payroll over the next 5 to 10 years? What's going to change? People will always get paid. Will they always get pay slips? Is there any difference going to happen? Is it always just going to be business as usual? And if things are going to change, what role do you see remote playing in that future?
Yeah, well, I don't want to give all my secrets away for the future, but certainly some of the themes that I think are going to happen. What I like is we're working really hard on, automation pieces, and also how do we feed in. There are the AI components or the machine learning and things like that that can help us with the education pieces. And what I like about some of these things we're building is that actually it frees up my experts to spend more time with my customers. Right. So that is what I think is one of the biggest areas here where I think we're going to see a great improvement in the relationship area that I talked about before. So, the trend is, for payroll to be as automated from a calculation perspective as possible. We talked about before consumer grade experiences. So, everybody has, with what's happened with iPhone and Apple and all those things, there's now just a base expectation of things on quality of software and ease of use. And, I've said it to you before in the past. I talk about, payroll so easy my mother could run it, right? Even my mother to a degree can make her iPhone work. There's still some areas I need to educate her on, and we talked about that. But, why have we, there's a disruption here in payroll that's starting to happen. And that is, how to make payroll consumer friendly and give that, we should be designing from that first. Payroll forever has been admin focused, back end focused, all that kind of stuff. It's time to make it user friendly. So big push there. We talked about our app before, but generally there's got to be this further push into user experience, making the access to the app easily on the go, and understanding your pay slip. Okay. And then the other part that I look at is what you do with that money, right? So it goes in your account, but there is a lot of things that we can do with pay. And if you're working at a company, and you pay people, why are you paying people? Well, you're paying them for work they've done. You're paying them to retain them, right? It's a competitive thing too. And it's essentially, it's a benefit, right? It's benefit of work. Well, what are other benefits that pay can do for you? Like, what does pay enable someone, a worker, to do? Well, it certainly enables them to live their life. Well, maybe crossing that bridge with them and providing additional benefits from pay. And as a retention tool, it's something that companies should start thinking about. How do you empower people with their pay? Okay. And use it as a retention tool. So I think those are some of the themes we're going to see. Some have started, some are coming. And I'm excited for where we're going in multiple areas of payroll.
Great. Thanks, Jonathan. And as we wrap up, and you've probably touched on this, but if you were to give parting words, right? Advice, basically, to companies that are struggling with payroll accuracy and engagement, to companies who are thinking about their payroll partner, and to everyone basically who's watching or listening in terms of what to look out for when trying to select a partner, right? What will those words be? What would your advice be to those segments of people?
That's interesting. I've now worked a little bit over 20 years in HR and payroll. Believe it or not.
It doesn't show.
Well, thank you. I started as an intern in the HR department. And one of the things was interesting that happened in the HR space was that people started to expect the products became fairly equal, the platforms, and then they started really focus on service, right? What service are you going to get from those HR product offerings? We haven't seen enough of that in payroll, right? Like, it's got to pay people quickly, accurately, and things like that. But more people have to start asking for a level of service from these companies. If you look at almost every survey out there, the customers can't stand the terrible service in payroll.
Yeah.
And I don't think enough are demanding. When I'm getting an engagement with prospects, they're not asking those questions enough. Oh, does your product do this and your product do that? I get it. That's an important question. but I rarely hear questions about service level. They ask me about, what is your SOPs, what is your SLAs, things like that. But that's not service. That's how quickly I would respond or fix it. But who's responding? Who's fixing it? Are they experts? Are they in a call center? Do they have experience in these areas? So if I can send people away with something, it's like, start demanding a level of service from these companies. I mean, you do it in other areas of your life. Why not this one? And if you think about, if payroll's in a retention tool and payroll's a highly emotional thing, you better make sure that you're partnering with someone that has a philosophy with their organization from a service level that's going to back you up with that emotional piece and making sure you retain your best employees. So that's what I would go away with, and start empowering yourself, consumers out there. Push your payroll partner, or go out and find someone that's going to support you properly. Start asking those questions. Stop shying away from them. We need to see this disruption, and we need to see it's time for revolution in payroll companies, and it's enough of what we've seen from legacy providers.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, Jonathan. And to all our listeners out there, to everyone listening, everyone watching, I hope that, this has been very insightful. You can read the entire report and get more details into the weeds, get more into the weeds of the things we've touched on here. But Jonathan, thank you so much. We always appreciate your wisdom. We appreciate your insights. Thank you for all you've shared. Always a pleasure. For everyone watching, everyone listening, make sure, like Jonathan has said, your payroll system is reliable, but more importantly, that you're partnering with someone who is very intentional about the service that they provide. I don't want to sell, but I know that Remote is that trusted partner when it comes to things like this. So you may want to try us. It will definitely do you more good. Thanks again, Jonathan, for your insights.
All right, because the fact is we focused on this. It's very simple, and you want it. So I appreciate your time, and this discussion has been really, really good and useful, I think, for me to hear these questions coming out of our prospects, our customers, what's going on in the market. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Jonathan. Bye, everyone.